Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub. Tonight, we journey into the haunting imagination of H.P. Lovecraft with his tale, The Other Gods, retold and reimagined in a fresh, suspenseful style, crafted to captivate you like never before. Upon the loftiest peaks of the world dwell the hidden gods of earth, silent, watchful, and forbidding. No mortal may boast of gazing upon them, for they have fled from mountain to mountain, driven ever higher by the restless climb of men. Only one trace remains of their passing, a carved visage upon the lonely cliffs of Engrenach, staring across the ages. Now they have withdrawn to the desolate realm of Kadath, a frozen waste where no human foot has trod. There, stern and unyielding, they guard their solitude. Once they tolerated mankind's intrusion, but no longer. Those who dare approach are forbidden to return. It is well that men know not the path to Kadath, for curiosity would surely lead them to ruin. Yet sometimes, in the stillness of night, the gods grow homesick. They drift in cloud ships to the mountains they abandoned, mourning the slopes of their youth. Men have mistaken their tears for rain upon Thure's white crown, and their sighs for the dawn winds that whisper through Larion's valleys. But the wise know better, and keep away from the high peaks when the skies are heavy with cloud. In Ulthar, beyond the river Sky, lived a man who longed to behold these gods. His name was Barzai the Wise, master of forbidden tomes, the cryptic books of Hassan, the ancient Penotic manuscripts of frozen Lomar. So deep was his knowledge that villagers whispered he was half a god himself. It was Barzai who counseled the burgesses to forbid the slaying of cats, and who revealed to young Akal the midnight journeys of black felines on St. John's Eve. But wisdom breeds desire, and Barzai hungered to see the gods with his own eyes. Convinced that his secret lore would shield him from their wrath, he resolved to climb the jagged summit of Hatheg-Kla on the very night when he knew the gods would gather there. Far beyond the village of Hatheg, in the barren desert of stone, rises Hatheg-Kla, a mountain like a colossal idol carved by forgotten hands. Its summit is forever shrouded in mournful mist, for the vapors are said to be the memories of the gods, who once loved this peak when they dwelt upon it in ages past. Even now the gods return in their drifting ships of cloud, veiling the slopes in pale vapors as they dance upon the summit beneath the cold moon.
The villagers whisper that no man should climb Hatheg-Kla, and that to ascend by night when the mist coils around the peak is certain death. But Barzai the Wise, undaunted by superstition, came from Ulthar with his disciple Atal. Atal, son of an innkeeper, trembled with fear. Yet Barzai, descended from noble blood and armed with forbidden knowledge, laughed at the warnings of the peasants. Together they crossed the desert, speaking by firelight of the hidden gods. For 13 days they journeyed, until at last the mountain loomed before them, crowned with its halo of sorrowful mist. Atal confessed his dread, but Barzai pressed onward, bold and unafraid, for no mortal had scaled Hatheg-Kla since the time of Sansu, whose fate is whispered with terror in the crumbling Pnakotic manuscripts. The climb was cruel. Jagged cliffs tore at their hands. Stones tumbled from above, and icy winds lashed their faces. Higher they rose, stumbling through snow and shadow, gasping as the air thinned and the sky itself seemed to change its hue. Yet Barzai's eyes gleamed with triumph, for he believed the summit would reveal wonders when the moon shone and the vapors gathered. For 3 relentless days they climbed toward the roof of the world, until at last they camped beneath the silent pinnacle. Night after night they waited, but no clouds came. The moon glared coldly through the thin, mournful mist, casting its pale light upon the mountain that held its secrets close. On the 5th night, beneath the full moon, Barzai's eyes caught sight of heavy clouds drifting from the north. He and Atal remained awake, watching as the vast shapes advanced, majestic, deliberate, encircling the peak until both summit and moon were swallowed in a restless shroud of vapor. For an hour they stood transfixed. Barzai strained to catch the hidden sounds of the gods, while Atal shivered, overcome by the chill of the mist and the dread of the night. When Barzai pressed onward, beckoning with feverish urgency, Atal hesitated long before daring to follow.
The vapors thickened, blinding the path. Atal could barely glimpse Barzai's silhouette climbing ahead, his figure ghostly in the dim moonlight. The old prophet moved with uncanny strength, fearless of the steep cliffs and yawning chasms that nearly halted his disciple. Together they stumbled upward through a wilderness of ice and stone, dwarfed by the silence of towering pinnacles and lifeless granite walls. Then, without warning, Barzai vanished from sight, scaling a monstrous cliff that jutted outward like a barrier forged by the gods themselves. Far below, Atal paused, unsettled by a strange glow. The light seemed stronger, as if the summit and the gathering place of the gods lay close at hand. Terror gnawed at him as he climbed toward the bulging cliff and the brightened sky. Through the swirling mist, Barzai's voice rang out, wild with triumph. "I have heard them, the gods of earth sing in revelry upon Hatheg-Kla. Their voices resound for Barzai the prophet. The mists part, the moon shines, and I shall behold their dance upon the mountain they cherished in youth. My wisdom has lifted me above the gods themselves. Their barriers are broken, their secrets laid bare. Barzai will see them, the proud, the hidden, the eternal gods of earth who deny the gaze of men." Atal could not hear the voices that drove Barzai into frenzy, yet he pressed toward the bulging cliff, searching for holds in the stone. Above him, Barzai's cries grew sharper, echoing through the mist. "The veil is thin, the moon throws its shadows, and the gods tremble before Barzai the Wise. Their dance shakes the heavens, their light falters, and they fear my coming." The air itself seemed to warp, as if the laws of earth bent to something greater. Though the slope grew impossibly steep, Atal found the path strangely effortless, sliding upward against all reason. The moonlight dimmed, swallowed by unnatural shadow, and Barzai's voice rose again, wild, triumphant, deranged. "The moon is gone, an eclipse unknown to men or gods." The frightened cries of Earth's gods twist into laughter, and the mountain stretches endlessly into the black sky. "Hey! Hey! At last I behold them!" Atal staggered upward, dizzy upon slopes that defied imagination. Then came a sound that froze his soul, a hideous laughter, mingled with a cry no mortal should hear, a cry that carried the torment of lifetimes in a single moment. Barzai's voice shrieked from the abyss. "The other gods, the guardians of the feeble gods of earth, do not look, do not see. Their vengeance rises from the infinite void. Merciful gods, I am falling, falling into the sky." Atal shut his eyes, covered his ears, and tried to hurl himself downward against the dreadful pull of unseen heights. And then it came. A thunderclap so vast it shook the plains below, waking peasants and burgesses alike. They gazed upward in terror,
for through the clouds they beheld an eclipse of the moon that no book had ever foretold. At last the moon returned, and Atal found himself safe upon the lower snows, untouched by the sight of earth's gods or the darker powers beyond. The ancient Penotic manuscripts whisper that Sansu in the dawn of the world found only barren ice and stone upon Hatheg-Kla. But when the men of Ulthar, Nir, and Hatheg conquered their terror and climbed the haunted peak by daylight, they discovered something carved into the naked rock, a vast cyclopean symbol 50 cubits across, as though a titan's chisel had split the mountain itself. Scholars shuddered, for the mark resembled those unreadable signs buried deep within the oldest pages of the Penotic texts. Barzai the Wise was never found. Atal, his disciple, refused to pray for his soul, and the villagers speak of him no more. But from that day forward, the people of Ulthar, Nir, and Hatheg tremble at eclipses and whisper prayers when pale vapors coil around the mountain and blot out the moon. And still, above the mists of Hatheg-Kla, the gods of earth sometimes return. Safe in their solitude, they drift from Kadath in ships of cloud, dancing upon the summit as they did in the world's youth, when men had not yet dared to climb the forbidden heights.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.